I read about the Welsh revival. They said in those days, big preachers would come into the meetings and they would sit in the back row and wouldn't dare say anything because the revival was so intense among the young people. I almost feel like that. Like I've been thinking, I don't want to get up and mess with 30 minutes of singing in tongues and feel like that. So kind of that's but he asked me to share. And he asked me to say, like, what's your dreams? Your old men will dream dreams. Can I give you a 43-year-old dream? I went to seminary and ran into a guy named Duke and a couple of guys weren't even in the seminary. And God was moving. We were just praying every night. And he put us on our heart that we would seek Acts chapter 2, no matter what the cost. 2 nights ago, I was here, and I said, Lord, is this my Acts chapter 2? Is this my upper room? I would do anything to come under a corporate baptism. I've seen revivals, wonderful. I've seen gold dust. I've seen shaking and baking. But I don't think my inner river has ever uncorked with total freedom of tongues of fire. And I found myself longing for this, you know. And so we made a covenant to seek Acts chapter 2. And because of that, I left seminary, quit seminary, and went to Maryland looking for Acts chapter 2. I didn't find it. I found my wife. That was better than Acts 2. I lost track of my friend that we made the covenant. Maybe I shared this with you here. I don't know. 12 years later, we moved to Pasadena, and a revival breaks out. And I receive a phone call from this young man that I'd made a covenant to seek Acts chapter 2. He said, I found your number, Lou. He said, I hear there's a revival going on. And I said, yeah. He said, I asked him, where are you? Well, I'm in Rosemead, the town next to Pasadena. He says, I've been away from the Lord for 12 years. I used to dream all the time. I haven't dreamed for 12 years. And I said, you mean you live right next to me? And he said, yeah. I said, come to the revival. The Holy Spirit touched this guy. He became our worship leader and had a dream that he was flying in a huge double-doored building with his guitar singing songs. People were being healed in the songs. When we moved into Mott Auditorium, he says, this is the building that I dreamed about. He became our worship leader. This is the God who says, I will guard over your covenant. 3,000 miles away, 12 years. This gives me confidence that I'm still on the journey. And I believe the upper room's not just a good name, it is a place for Acts chapter 2. That should be our expectation. I'm just going to share a few more things since he gave me the mic. Years ago, I don't know what I shared here, but years ago, I woke up one morning with this intense longing to read 2 books, Shaping History Through Prayer and Fasting by Derek Prince, and Rain from Heaven by, I forget his name, Arthur Wallace. And in Prince's book, there's a chapter that says, fasting precipitates the latter rain. And I woke up with this groaning, and literally all day long I groaned. I've got to find those 2 books, but I couldn't find them anywhere in my library. And I groaned all day long, groaning, God, I must find those books today. You've got to confirm to me that fasting precipitates the latter rain. That night I was preaching up in the desert, a friend of mine, preparing before the message. in his office. He was sitting in his desk. Suddenly he gets up, walks over to his bookshelf, says, Lou, come over here. I come over here. He pulls off his bookshelf, Rain from Heaven, and says, you're looking for this book. The next morning, I'm teaching a class. A guy walks in and he said, Lou, I was at the vineyard in Costa Mesa this morning. Someone yelled at me, you're going to meet Lou right now, Lou Engle. There's a book he's looking for, Shaping History Through Prayer and Fasting. Give it to him. Maybe that story has given me faith that even more now, in 40 days, I'll send the rain. I had a dream of a scroll rolling before me, and he said, in yet 40 days, I'll send the rain. What if we begin to believe that Joel's fast will loose the latter rain? It's time. I'm sharing these things simply that what if we did go after this for 40 days? What if we just said, Lord, one time in our life, we'll spend it all. Jesus appeared to his disciples for 40 days before the 10 in the upper room. What if he just starts appearing to us? This is our, come. I remember many years ago, and I think this will be my last little story. Arthur Wallace came to the church where I was a young man. And all these people were surrounding him after the meeting, and I prayed. I was so dissatisfied with my baptism of the Holy Spirit. So I prayed, Lord, have everybody leave him so I can talk to him. Suddenly everybody leaves him, and he's standing there all alone. I walk up to him and said, Mr. Wallace, you know, I prayed for the baptism of the Holy Spirit, but I'm so dissatisfied with what I've received. And I still am. And he said, did you receive anything when you prayed? I said, yeah, I think so. He said, well, thank God for what you've got, but never stop hungering for another mighty baptism of the Holy Spirit. And then he said, I too am a candidate for another mighty baptism of the Holy Spirit. Stand with me. This is my dream. Maybe my dream meets yours today. Give us Acts chapter 2. Maybe you want to make that vow with me. Give us Acts chapter 2. Just begin to pray.